I'm Mark Basham, ESI's Vice President of Corporate Marketing and Strategic Intelligence. In today's business environment, it's almost impossible to have a conversation without discussing ROI. Things are tough and resources are scarce and every budget dollar is scrutinized. One thing's for sure though, if you can't justify your learning programs, then you risk losing them. And the best weapon you have to defend yourself is ROI. But ROIs are difficult to show, right? Maybe not so much. Today we're going to look at 5 fundamentals you'll need to know in order to calculate ROI on your training program. And then we'll dive into the details by reviewing an actual ROI training survey conducted by ESI for over 30,000 project managers. As with most things, there are some fundamentals you'll want to be aware of before starting on your ROI journey. 5 things to be specific. Number 1, get your head straight. ROI is more than a calculation. It's actually a way of thinking. It's easy to focus on the quality of our training programs rather than the impact of our training programs. And the quality is certainly important. It doesn't go nearly far enough. After all, the assumption is that quality leads to learning and learning leads to impact. That's not necessarily true. If you're going to prove your value, then you're going to have to shift your thinking from a quality mindset into an impact mindset. It sounds easy, but it actually requires a willingness to accept responsibility for the actions of your delegates after they get out of your learning event. So you see, in order to bridge someone else's leap of faith, you're going to have to take your own. But don't worry. As you'll see, you have a safety net beneath you. So jump, because the real danger is staying where you are. Number 2, calculate early and often. Although it's possible to calculate ROI after the fact, it's certainly not advisable. First, you would be missing out on one of the core benefits of ROI, the opportunity to make adjustments to your training program along the way. Smart L&D organizations view ROI as a real-time process, not something that you repeat every couple of years. After all, you don't want to be conducting interviews 2 years after the fact. Number 3, build a case. Getting to ROI is like building a court case. You make an argument, and then you present facts to support that argument. Ultimately, these arguments and facts result in an obvious conclusion that your training program generates more value than it costs. The first step in proving ROI is to provide a layer of evidence that supports the idea that value is being created. You can't credibly jump straight from training to return. You must first show where value is being generated in the business. You have to prove that your training program improves the student's ability to do their job. And then that improvement has a positive impact on the business, and that impact results in a financial benefit to the company. And then finally, that the benefit is more than the cost of the training. It stands to reason that if you can't show job impact and business results of that impact, then you can't credibly prove ROI. Number 4, validate your findings. The more data points you have, the better. The people who matter when it comes to making your case are typically analytical, the COO or the CFO types, and they are likely going to want an explanation as to how you reached your conclusions. The obvious first step is to survey the delegates immediately after the course. However, at this point, students tend to be hopped up on their newly found knowledge and a bit over-optimistic as to how the training will impact their performance. For this reason, it's a good idea to do a follow-up survey a couple of months after the learning event to understand exactly how the training impacted their performance and drove business results. Additionally, you can ask informative questions after the fact that you can't ask beforehand, such as how long it took them to apply their knowledge to the job and what obstacles they encountered along the way. Finally, if at all possible, survey the delegates' managers. This will collaborate your findings. Of course, all 3 surveys need to be constructed in a way that the data is validated between them. Number 5, tell the story. Don't let the narrative get lost in the data. Ultimately, this is not about numbers. It's about the story of your program, where it's been and where it needs to go. Your story needs to be compelling and interesting. State your original goals, the challenges you faced along the way, and how you overcame them to make a difference for the business. Good stories always talk about the journey, so don't be afraid to talk about your challenges and how your goals might have been changed along the way. If at all possible, include testimonials from your students to help tell the story. Anecdotal evidence alone means nothing, but when it's combined with analytical data to help make the point, it can be a very, very powerful tool. So follow these 5 fundamentals and you'll find that getting to ROI is much easier than you think. Now let's dig into the details. ESI conducted a training ROI study to demonstrate the value of our learning programs across hundreds of courses, dozens of companies, and government agencies in the US, Asia, and Europe. Though the study was obviously vast in terms of the number of students, training sessions, and organizations involved, the process used would be the same for any size program. So now let's take a look at the methodology and the results. First, the methodology. There are 2 ways to calculate ROI. You can bring in people with white lab coats and stopwatches to measure the actual impact of your training programs, or you can ask participants for their opinion. And so now, while measuring what people do is always better than measuring what they think, in most environments it's just not practical. Don't forget, you need to show ROI beyond a reasonable doubt, not indisputable empirical proof. Here are the steps we followed in our methodology. Step 1. After each class, all delegates were emailed an online survey. Now the survey contained about 20 questions, which took approximately 7 minutes to complete. The response rate was in the neighborhood of 75% or so. I won't review every question, but the categories we covered included job quality of the training, job impact, post-training support, business results, job performance, and return expectations. Step 2. 60 days after the class, a second survey was sent out to the same delegates in order to validate their initial responses and to collect additional information, such as time to job impact and barriers to use. On average, scores dropped on the second survey, but this is to be expected. Understanding the barriers to adopting the training on the job is a critical component of the second survey, since adoption is a key in driving ROI. It's easy to focus on the components of learning over which we have the most control, but it's flawed thinking because no one in the executive suite really cares about that. They care about the impact of your training program, not the training program itself. It only makes good sense to ask your delegates the kinds of questions the business is going to ask of you. Step 3. Results were analyzed across 4 levels of learning measurement which lead to ROI: quality, effectiveness, job impact, and business results. For each of these categories, several questions were asked and delegates responded on a Likert scale from 1 to 7. Then an aggregate score for each category was calculated. Additionally, we asked specific questions about what business results would be impacted by the training and how much of the impact was specifically due to the training. All of these questions were asked in the initial survey and then again 60 days later back on the job. So what did all of this data allow us to do? First, it gave very specific quantitative measures on how much performance and business results were impacted. Second, it provided valuable insights into how quickly performance was impacted and what obstacles got in the way of adopting the training. As we'll see, this is very critical when it comes to boosting your ROI. Step 4, we need to estimate some costs. In order to calculate ROI, you're going to need an estimate cost for information, specifically the per student loaded tuition cost, which includes courseware, instructor T&L, venue costs, snacks, administrative costs, etc. And then you're going to need the average salary cost of the attendees. So this is to compensate for the time that they're away from their job. And don't get lost in the numbers. Your estimates should be as close as possible, but they are, after all, averages. So don't go digging up salary information from HR. So what exactly were we able to prove? First, the training was effective. 79% of learners strongly or very strongly felt that they experienced significant knowledge and skill gains. The training was applied on the job. 70% of learners responded positively when asked whether they were able to successfully apply the knowledge and skills that they had learned on the job. 80% said that they had used the knowledge and skills they had learned within 6 weeks, with an additional 18% reporting that they plan to use it in the future. Third, the training significantly improved job performance. 66% of learners reported that the training had contributed to a significant improvement in their job performance. Learners reported a 9% improvement from job performance directly tied to the training. 4, the improvement in job performance experienced by learners had a significant impact on business results. Quality, cost, risk, productivity, communication, customer satisfaction, employee engagement, cycle time, and revenue were all positively impacted by the training. As you can see, we've made a very good case leading up to the final ROI numbers, and here they are. The monetary benefit for each learner was $4,656. The benefit to cost ratio was $2.92. That means that for every dollar invested in the training, $2.92 were returned back to the business. The payback period was estimated at 4.12 months, and that means that the training investment was recaptured by the business just 4 months after the learning event. Finally, the ROI number was calculated at 191%, a very solid result. Well, listen, thank you for joining us today. I hope that it's been informative and that you find success in your ROI journey.